Now we move on to a paper 2 question. It gives a table and asks us to complete it using terms from the list provided, which include phenotype, dominant, gene, genotype, heterozygous, homozygous, allele, and recessive. The first description is a form of a gene that codes for one of a pair of contrasting features. The correct term is allele. The second description is a form of a gene that always has an effect when it is present. The correct term is dominant. The third description is having two different forms of a gene for a particular feature. The correct term is heterozygous. The fourth description is having two of the same form of a gene for a particular feature. The correct term is homozygous. And the final description is the combination of alleles that an organism has in its chromosomes. The correct term is genotype. Next, we move on to a question based on a diagram of part of a DNA molecule taken from a bacterial cell. Part 1 asks us to state the term that describes the shape of the DNA molecule. The answer is double helix. Next, we are told that most DNA in bacterial cells is found in one large loop in the cytoplasm, and we are asked to name another structure in bacterial cells that contains DNA. The answer is plasmid. Then, we are asked to state the name of the type of molecule represented by the letters A, T, G, and C in the diagram. The correct answer is nitrogenous base. Finally, we are asked to outline the importance of the sequence of A, T, G, and C in DNA. The answer is that the sequence of these bases codes for proteins. It determines the sequence of amino acids in a protein, and this amino acid sequence then determines the shape, structure, and function of the protein. Now we have another multiple choice question based on a graph showing the percentage of the population with different ABO blood groups in one region. The question asks how the graph suggests that variation in ABO blood groups is discontinuous. The correct answer is C, because there is a limited number of phenotypes. Next, we have a question about a gene with two alleles, capital A and small a, and we are asked which diagram correctly identifies these alleles and the genotypes they can form. The correct answer is C because it follows the basic rules of genetics. The dominant allele, A, is shown correctly, and the recessive allele, A, is also placed properly. It also correctly groups genotypes. Dominant alleles capital AA and recessive alleles small a are placed under homozygous because they have identical alleles, while capital A and small a is placed under heterozygous because it has different alleles. The other options are wrong because they either mix up dominant and recessive alleles or incorrectly classify genotypes. Next, we have a question about evolution in birds. Over time, a species of bird develops a more pointed beak, which helps them catch small insects hiding in cracks in rocks. We are asked to identify the reason for this change in beak shape. The correct answer is C, because individuals with more pointed beaks are better able to compete for food, so they are more likely to survive and reproduce. Now we have another multiple choice question based on a graph showing the percentage of the population with different ABO blood groups in one region. The question asks how the graph suggests that variation in ABO blood groups is discontinuous. The correct answer is C, because there is a limited number of phenotypes. Next, the question asks about a family tree showing 3 generations, where an inherited condition affecting the nervous system is present. This condition is caused by a dominant allele that usually appears in adulthood. The question is asking, what is the probability that baby 7 will be a girl who will also develop the condition later in life? First, we identify the genotypes. Since the condition is caused by a dominant allele, we represent it as capital H, while the normal allele is small h. Individuals who are unaffected must therefore be small h small h. The father, labeled 3, is shown as unaffected, so his genotype is small h small h. The mother, labeled 4, is affected, so she must carry at least one capital H. However, her father, individual 2, is unaffected, meaning he could only pass on a small h allele. Therefore, the mother must be heterozygous, capital H small h. Next, we calculate the probabilities. When a heterozygous mother, capital H small h, is crossed with a homozygous recessive father, small h, there is a 50% chance that the child will inherit the capital H allele and develop the condition, and a 50% chance that the child will be unaffected. The probability of the baby being a girl is also 50%. Since these are independent events, we multiply the probabilities. 1/2 multiplied by 1/2 gives 1/4, which is 0.25. So, the final answer is 0.25. Finally, the last question asks which process involves reproduction between members of a species that are best adapted to their environment. The correct answer is natural selection, because it is the process by which individuals with advantageous traits survive and reproduce more successfully, passing those traits on to the next generation. So that brings us to the end of our topical past paper practice for the topic of inheritance. These past papers are also available in the link provided in the description, so make sure you check them out for more practice. Take care and I will see you again. Thank you so much for watching.